The Galactic Scientific Council's preliminary report on Sol 3, designation Earth, caused quite a stir when it first arrived. Senior researcher Val Enix's antennae twitched nervously as she presented her findings to the assembled council members, their varied forms filling the grand amphitheater of the Galactic Archives. Distinguished colleagues, she began, her translator converting her clicks and whistles into standard galactic common. I believe we have encountered what may be the most perplexing death world yet discovered. The holoscreen behind her displayed a beautiful blue-green marble suspended in space. Another death world. Came the dismissive wave of thought from Counselor Zixra, their crystalline form glinting under the chamber's lights. We've catalogued hundreds. What makes this one special? Val Enix's outer membrane rippled with what her species considered a smile. Everything about it defies our classification systems. First, it's a water world with large landmasses. Nothing unusual there, but it's the only planet we found where the same location can experience both freezing and burning temperatures within a single planetary rotation. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Impossible, declared Counselor Eth4, their tentacles writhing in disbelief. No complex life could evolve under such conditions. That's just the beginning. Val Enix continued, changing the display to show Earth's various ecosystems. The planet experiences regular atmospheric disturbances that can level entire forests. Its crust is fractured and continuously moving, causing massive earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. There are regions where invisible microorganisms in the air can kill within days, and others where the local plant life is so toxic it can stop a heart in seconds. Surely nothing sentient could evolve there, asked a younger council member from the back. Val Enix's membrane rippled again, this time with what might have been anxiety. Not only did sentient life evolve there, but the dominant species, they call themselves humans, seem to thrive on chaos. They live in every habitat on the planet, from frozen wastelands to scorching deserts. They've built cities in earthquake zones, on the slopes of active volcanoes, and in regions regularly struck by massive storms. She switched the display to show human activities. But here's what's truly fascinating. They seek out dangerous situations for what they call entertainment. They climb their highest mountains for fun. They dive into their deep oceans just to see what's there. They deliberately expose themselves to dangerous conditions to test their limits. The council chamber had grown eerily quiet. Val Enix continued, her voice dropping slightly. Our initial observation team reported watching a group of humans chase one of their planet's apex predators. Not for food or defense, but to attach a tracking device so they could study it. When the predator attacked, they seemed excited. Clearly, they're insane, Counselor Zixra declared. We should quarantine the system immediately. With respect, Counselor, Val Enix replied. I believe that would be a serious mistake. These humans have already detected our observation platforms. Instead of panicking, they've been leaving messages for us. They're inviting us to visit. She played the latest transmission they'd intercepted. To any alien civilizations out there, if you're watching us, why not come down and say hi? We promise not to bite. Much. They included what they call an emoji, Val Enix explained. They use these pictographs to convey emotional context. In this case, they're attempting to be humorous. They're making jokes about first contact. Eth4's tentacles went completely still, a sign of shock in their species. Yes, and they've been broadcasting what they call science fiction into space for over a century. Stories about meeting aliens. Many of these stories involve humans befriending alien species. Others, she paused, involve humans fighting alien invasions. Their imagined responses to hostile contact are creative. The council chamber erupted in concerned chatter. Val Enix waited for it to quiet down before delivering her final recommendation. Distinguished colleagues, I propose we classify Earth as a Category Omega death world, not because of its environmental conditions, which are indeed dangerous, but because its dominant species has evolved to view danger as a challenge to overcome rather than a threat to avoid. The humans don't just survive their death world. They've made it their playground. The Council voted unanimously to approve the classification. They also added a warning note to the galactic database. Approach with caution. Species shows signs of extreme adaptability and inexplicable enthusiasm for dangerous situations, may attempt to befriend you, or dare you to do something inadvisable. As the Council adjourned, none of them realized they'd just witnessed the beginning of humanity's reputation as the galaxy's most peculiar spacefaring species. The real fun wouldn't start until the first official contact team arrived, but that's another story entirely. Chief Xenobiologist Tara Dex was beginning to regret volunteering for the Earth survey mission. Her compound eyes stared in disbelief at the latest incident report, while her assistant, Caxven, nervously shuffled his crystalline appendages. "Let me understand this correctly," she chittered, her universal translator struggling to convey her exasperation. "You're telling me the humans knew our stealth systems were malfunctioning, not because they detected our advanced technology, but because, and I'm quoting here, 'Dude, we could see you guys having a pizza party through the ship's windows.'" "Affirmative," Caxven responded, his crystalline form shifting to a deeper shade of embarrassment. "They've been posting what they call TikToks about us. Apparently, we're trending." The holoscreen displayed various human social media posts. One showed their supposedly invisible ship hovering above something called a Walmart, with the caption, "Aliens really out here trying to hide while eating space snacks and watching us shop. #First contact. #Aliens be slacking. They think why can't see them all." "That's not even the worst part," Caxven continued. "Remember the research team we sent to study their extreme sports?" Tyra Dex's antennae drooped. "Don't tell me. The entire team has gone native, as the humans say. They're now participating in something called base jumping. According to their last report, it's totally radical. Chief, you gotta try this." The holoscreen shifted to footage of their elite xenobiologists, wearing human recreational gear, jumping off various high structures while whooping with joy. Several humans could be seen in the background, cheering them on and offering what appeared to be fermented grain beverages. And the marine biology team. They've been invited to something called a surfing competition. The humans apparently noticed them studying ocean predators and decided to show them how to, quote, "hang 10 with the great whites, bro." Tyra Dex's exoskeleton nearly cracked from stress. Are they aware that those are apex predators? The humans or the sharks? Because honestly, Chief, I'm starting to question which is which. You should see what they do with something called a barbecue grill. The next report made her mandibles click in distress. Their behavioral analysis team had been invited to something called a tailgate party before a football game. They'd gone in disguise, hoping to observe human social interactions. Instead, they'd ended up participating in something called a hot wing eating contest, and were now demanding their ship's food synthesizers be reprogrammed to produce something called ranch dressing. "This planet is impossible," Tyra Dex declared, reviewing the mounting evidence of their mission's deterioration. "Yesterday, I watched a human child walk up to one of their planet's largest land predators, apparently something called a good boy, and proceed to give it belly rubs. When I tried to warn them about the danger, both the human and the predator looked at me like I was the strange one." Speaking of strange, Caxven added, his crystalline form flickering with amusement, "Have you seen what they do with their planetary weather monitoring? They have specialists who chase massive atmospheric disturbances for fun. The storm chasers." Tyra Dex shuddered. "Don't remind me. We lost contact with our meteorological team last week. They sent one final message about going to find some tornadoes with their new human friends. Now they're streaming something called a weather channel." The situation had clearly spiraled out of control. Their mission to secretly study Earth's bizarre biosphere had transformed into what the humans would call a cultural exchange program, though mostly it seemed to involve humans teaching highly trained xenoscientists how to engage in increasingly questionable recreational activities. Should we abort the mission? Caxven asked, displaying footage of their anthropology team participating in something called a karaoke night. Tyra Dex watched as one of her most serious researchers, a being composed primarily of living crystal, attempted to sing something called Sweet Home Alabama, while humans cheered enthusiastically. "It's too late," she sighed. "We've already been compromised. This morning, I caught myself using the word yeet in a formal report to the council. And yesterday, I found myself craving something called a cheeseburger. The humans have a saying," Chief Caxven offered helpfully. "If you can't beat them, join them. They're having something called a music festival next week. Apparently, there will be something called crowd surfing." Tyra Dex stared at her assistant for a long moment before making what would probably be counted as another questionable decision in a long line of questionable decisions. "Send an official communication to the council," she ordered. "Tell them our covered study has been compromised. We're switching to overt observation and cultural exchange. And unofficially, ask the humans what we should bring to this festival. But please, for the love of all that's scientifically sacred, no more hot wings. The medical bay is still dealing with the last batch." As she filed her report, Tyra Dex couldn't help but wonder if perhaps the humans weren't the only ones adapting. After all, she had to admit, their way of approaching life's dangers, with curiosity, enthusiasm, and what they called snacks, was starting to make a strange sort of sense. The council would not be pleased. But then again, they hadn't tried Earth's pizza yet. Ambassador Kethrix of the Galactic Council massaged his crystalline temples, staring at the latest report from Earth's first official diplomatic reception. The document, written by his most experienced diplomatic officer, began with an unprecedented disclaimer. "I swear on my ancestral spawning grounds that every word of this is true, though you won't believe it." The reception had been meant to be a formal introduction of Earth's representatives to the Galactic Diplomatic Corps. Instead, it had turned into what humans called a mixer, complete with something they termed icebreaker games. "And you're certain," Kethrix asked the holographic projection of his diplomatic officer, "that Earth's ambassador suggested playing something called Truth or Dare with the Hive Mind Collective of Sector 7. "Affirmative." The officer's mandibles clicked nervously. The resulting situation was unprecedented. The hive mind chose Dare and was subsequently challenged to try something called breakdancing. They are now demanding regular dance lessons as part of their diplomatic package. Thrix's crystalline form shifted through several colors of distress as he reviewed the footage. The massive, multi-bodied consciousness that was the hive mind was indeed attempting to perform what humans called a headspin. More disturbing was how good they were getting at it. What about the incident with the Viridian Empire's delegation? Ah, yes. The officer's antennae drooped. The humans introduced them to something called spicy ramen. The Viridians, attempting to prove their superior constitution, consumed an entire bowl of something labeled Ghost Pepper Special. They have since declared humans worthy adversaries and have proposed an annual competition they're calling the Galactic Hot Ones Challenge. The report continued, each page more alarming than the last. The humans had introduced the methane-breathing Zixcal to energy drinks, resulting in what they termed a sick rave in the embassy's East Wing. The normally stoic quantum consciousness of Beta Reticuli had become obsessed with something called memes and was now communicating exclusively in picture-based references that only humans seemed to understand. But surely, Kethrix ventured hopefully, the formal dinner portion went according to protocol. The officer's entire exoskeleton seemed to cringe. The humans brought something called potluck dishes. They insisted every species contribute their native cuisine. The acid-born of Nexus 6 brought their traditional acid-based nutritional supplements. The humans ate it. Not only did they survive, but they asked for the recipe, suggesting it would make, and I quote, awesome hot sauce. Thrix's crystalline structure nearly shattered from shock. They consumed pure acid for pleasure. They called it zesty, the officer confirmed. But that's not the worst part. They've somehow convinced the eternal Void Warriors of Sigma 9 to participate in something called a karaoke night. The warriors who once terrorized 3 galaxies are now regularly performing something called Don't Stop Believin' in the Embassy Lounge. The ambassador pulled up another report, this one from the Cultural Exchange Office. Humans had been invited to various diplomatic missions across the galaxy, with increasingly chaotic results. The synthetic collective had learned about practical jokes and was now engaged in what they called a legendary prank war with their organic counterparts. The ancient philosophers of Tau Ceti had been introduced to something called dad jokes and had spent 3 cycles attempting to achieve enlightenment through wordplay. There's more, the officer added hesitantly. The humans have proposed a series of what they call team-building exercises for the next Galactic Council session. They're suggesting something called Paintball. Thrix's form briefly flickered with what might have been curiosity. And what, precisely, is paintball? As I understand it, it involves dividing into teams and engaging in simulated combat using projectile weapons filled with colored dye. The humans assure us it's totally safe and super fun. And the Council's response? The warrior clans of Arcturus immediately volunteered. The peacekeepers of Vega are demanding to be on the opposite team. The hive mind wants to know if they can use multiple bodies simultaneously, and the quantum consciousness has already designed custom team logos. Thrix sat in silence for a long moment, his crystalline form cycling through various shades of resignation. Finally, he spoke. Schedule the paintball session. But first, send a priority message to all diplomatic missions. New protocol. Before agreeing to any human-suggested activity, first ask if it's something they do for fun on their death world. If the answer is yes, require a full risk assessment and liability waiver. Sir, the officer ventured, the humans have a saying, YOLO, you only live once. They seem to use it to justify particularly questionable decisions. Indeed, Thrix sighed. Add that phrase to the diplomatic warning lexicon, classified as extreme caution required. He paused, then added, and sign me up for the paintball team. Purely for diplomatic purposes, of course. Of course, sir. The humans are calling it the first annual intergalactic paint wars. They're already making t-shirts. As Thrix ended the transmission, he couldn't help but wonder if the galaxy would ever be the same. Humanity wasn't just surviving in the diplomatic arena. They were somehow making it more entertaining. Perhaps that was their most dangerous quality of all. The next report would confirm his suspicions. The humans had introduced the concept of diplomatic mixers to the Galactic Peace Conference. The fate of interstellar relations would never be the same. Supreme Commander Vrax of the Drachnid Empire glared at his strategic display with all 4 eyes, his scales shifting from confident purple to confused green. The invasion of Earth, which his military analysts had predicted would take approximately 6 hours, was entering its 3rd day. And it was not going according to any known military doctrine. Report, he growled at his thoroughly demoralized command staff. How exactly are we losing to a level 3 civilization that hasn't even achieved unified planetary governance? First Strategic Officer Kelks brought up the latest battlefield data, his claws trembling slightly. Sir, the humans are not responding to invasion protocols correctly. Explain. Well, when we deploy our Terror Beast battalions in their major population center called Australia, the locals, Kelks's scales rippled with disbelief. They started trying to pet them. One human actually put a saddle on a Ravager-class Terror Beast. They're calling it Bruce now. Vrax's tail twitched violently. What about the automated combat drones? The humans in a region called Silicon Valley hacked them in under an hour. They're now being used to deliver something called DoorDash orders. Our most advanced war machines are bringing humans their lunch. The strategic display updated, showing more concerning developments. A group of humans in a place called Florida had somehow weaponized their local fauna. The dreaded Drachnid shock troops have been forced to retreat from what the mission logs described as weaponized alligators wearing GoPros. The atmospheric superiority platforms. Vrax asked, dreading the answer. The humans are. Kelks checked his notes again, doing sick tricks off them with something called paramotors. They've turned our orbital bombardment positions into what they're calling the sickest extreme sports course ever. They're live streaming it on something called Twitch. The situation in other regions was equally baffling. The Drachnid's attempt to disable Earth's power grid had backfired spectacularly when humans in a place called Texas simply shrugged and said, "First time," before continuing their daily routines completely unaffected. "Sir," another officer interrupted, "we're receiving strange reports from the Psychological Warfare Division. The humans are minning the invasion." They're what? They're creating and sharing humorous content about our invasion attempt. Our troops are becoming demoralized because they're becoming, as the humans say, a joke on the internet. The officer projected some of the content. They're calling us space grumps and making fun of our supposedly scary invasion forces. One human commented, "Aw, look at their little murder lizard faces. They're trying so hard to be scary." Vrax's scales shifted to a deep red of fury. "What about our infiltration units?" "They've gone native, sir. The infiltrators we sent to gather intelligence from human entertainment venues are now participating in something called karaoke nights. Our elite psychological warfare specialists are posting on Instagram about human fashion. 3 entire stealth squadrons have been recruited by something called Food Network to host cooking shows." The Supreme Commander stared in disbelief as footage showed his fearsome warriors, still in full battle armor, enthusiastically explaining how to make something called fusion tacos to a cheering human audience. But the most disturbing development, Kelks continued, is from the human military response. Finally, Vrax brightened. "Conventional warfare we understand." "Not." "Exactly, sir. Instead of meeting us in organized battle, they're using what they call asymmetric warfare, but not like anything we've seen before. A group of humans called engineering students redesigned our own sonic weapons to play something called Never Gonna Give You Up on loop. Our troops are surrendering just to make it stop. Surely our bioengineered plagues. The humans in a place called CDC isolated, studied, and turned them into vaccines within 48 hours. They're now offering our troops free health care and something called Spotify Premium if they defect." Vrax slumped in his command throne. "Do we have any forces still combat effective?" "Technically, yes," Kelks replied hesitantly, "but they're all busy attending something called a tailgate party with the humans. Apparently, there's going to be something called a barbecue competition, and our troops refuse to miss it. They say they need to defend the honor of Drachnid cuisine." The Supreme Commander was silent for a long moment before asking, "How many troops have we lost?" "None to combat, sir, but we've had 15,000 request political asylum on Earth. They're citing better food, cooler video games, and actually knowing how to party as their reasons." Just then, a new transmission came through. It was from Earth's Unified Defense Command, such as it was. The message read, "Hey space friends, since this whole invasion thing isn't really working out, want to come down and watch the game instead? We're having wings." Vrax stared at the message for a long time before making a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Send a response," he ordered. "Ask them what we should bring." 3 days later, the Galactic Council received an unusual peace treaty. It was written on what appeared to be a barbecue restaurant napkin, and included provisions for annual cultural exchange cookouts and something called an intergalactic sports league. The Drachnid Empire, once feared across 3 spiral arms, became known instead for their excellent fusion cuisine and surprisingly good microbreweries. Supreme Commander Vrax was last seen judging the chili cook-off in Texas, his scales a contented shade of blue. And Earth's reputation grew even more peculiar. As one Drachnid officer noted in his final report, they didn't defeat us with superior firepower or advanced technology. They defeated us with hospitality, memes, and food so good it should be classified as a weapon of mass destruction. The annual Galactic Species Conference was in full swing, and this year's hot topic was, once again, Earth. The massive amphitheater of the Galactic Central Hub was packed with representatives from thousands of civilizations, all there to discuss the increasingly peculiar influence of humanity on galactic culture. High Chancellor Zix of the Galactic Council stood at the podium, his crystalline form gleaming under the spotlights. In the 50 standard cycles since Earth's official recognition as a spacefaring civilization, he began, we have had to rewrite our xenosociology textbooks 17 times. Would the Committee for Human Studies please present their latest findings? Dr. Ktal, a seventh-generation xenanthropologist, floated forward, her energy form flickering with what could only be described as amused resignation. Distinguished colleagues, Earth has continued to defy all conventional classification systems. We've been forced to create an entirely new category, chaotic good. The holographic display behind her lit up with various scenes from across the galaxy. As you can see, human influence has spread far beyond their solar system, not through military might or economic dominance, but through what they call vibes and cultural exchange. The first image showed the formerly militant hive mind of Sector 7 hosting what they called a block party in space, with multiple high ships arranged in a manner that humans apparently called good party feng shui. The warrior clans of Arcturus, Ktal continued, have transformed their ritual combat arenas into what humans call paintball courts. Their younger generation now settles disputes through what they term sick moves rather than traditional death matches. A chorus of concerned murmurs rippled through the assembly. An elder being of pure thought energy raised a tendril. But surely this is disrupting the natural order of galactic society. That's just it, Ktal replied. According to our studies, there is no disruption. Somehow, humanity has achieved what millennia of diplomatic efforts couldn't. They've made peace fun. The display shifted to show various scenes. The cybernetic collectives of Ta City were hosting LAN parties. The silicon-based life forms of Rigel had become obsessed with something called food tourism, despite not needing to eat. The ancient and dignified space whales of the Orc cloud were now participating in something called synchronized swimming competitions. But perhaps most alarming, Ktal continued, is their effect on galactic economics. The display showed a graph. 80% of all new businesses in the galaxy are now either restaurants, entertainment venues, or what humans call extreme sports facilities. The Quantum Eye Overseer has started using human slang. Another researcher added, it ended its last system-wide update with no cap, fur, and we still don't know exactly what that means. The evidence continued to mount. The Void Dancers of Antares, known for their solemn gravitational manipulation ceremonies, were now offering zero-G raves. The Time Lords of Beta Centauri had started organizing what they called retro parties by actually traveling to different time periods. Furthermore, Ktal noted, humanity's classification as a Deathworld species has been updated. They are now listed as technically a Deathworld species, but mostly just here for a good time. The display showed humans teaching various alien species their customs. A group of energy beings learning to high five, a silicon-based life form attempting to perfect its barbecue technique, and a collective consciousness trying to understand why humans found something called dad jokes so amusing. In conclusion, Ktal said, we must accept that humanity has fundamentally changed galactic society. They turned the most dangerous planet in known space into what they call a tourist destination. Their solution to nearly every crisis has been to, and I quote, throw a sick party and vibe it out. The conference erupted in discussion, only to be interrupted by an incoming transmission. It was from Earth's official diplomatic office. Hey, space friends. Just a reminder that the annual Intergalactic Food and Music Festival is next month. This year's theme is Party Like It's $29.99. Don't forget your dancing shoes, or equivalent appendage coverings. P.S. The hive mind is bringing their famous quantum-entangled nachos. High Chancellor Zix looked around the room, noting how many of the supposedly serious representatives were already checking their calendars. I suppose, he said with what might have been a sigh, we should address the final item on our agenda. The proposal to officially rename Earth from Class 12 Deathworld to Humanity's House of Fun. The humans suggested Party Planet. Someone called from the back. Very well, Zix conceded. All in favor. The vote was unanimous, though several beings abstained on the grounds that they were too busy planning their festival outfits. And so it was that Earth, once feared as the galaxy's deadliest death world, became known instead as the place where every species, no matter how different, could come together to, as humans put it, have a blast. The official galactic warning now reads, approach with enthusiasm. Residents may attempt to befriend you, feed you, teach you to dance, or all of the above. Resistance is futile but unnecessary. Peace brings snacks.